Right. Okay, so yeah, official welcome. Thanks much to everyone who found the time to join here on the second Siebel Friday. So the first Siebel Friday we had, if I remember correctly, were like 18 people, and that the Siebel Friday was recorded is on the last Friday in January. And let's just check the YouTube channel of the Siebel Hub. You might have found it already. And the recording of the last Siebel Friday, or every Siebel Friday, is going to be on YouTube. And it's incredible how many views we got here. So this is really, some demand is there. I can see it, I can feel it. And what are the topics for today? So it's a loose collection of things that might be interesting for anybody working with Siebel, making a living with Siebel, geeking out on Siebel like I am. And so I've put on this slide, I put a few keywords like MDE. Of course, that's the big one. With the 21.2 update, we have the modular deployment engine. And we have, again, hit the chat with questions to Oracle. If you have any, of course, I don't want to do all the talking, so I'm gonna not unmute everybody. So if you have a microphone, you can also chime in. So I think we'll start with unboxing the MDE, because that's really the big surprise package. They are delivered by Oracle in 21.2. And then we'll see just how far we go. So let's see. Put together a few highlights of the 21.2. So 21.2 has been released just last week, and it has been announced modular deployment engine as GA. Probably there are some among you who have already been using the MDE, because it was early adopter since 20.5. So if there's anyone already has used some older versions of MDE, can you stand up, or can you say hi in the chat? Anyone? Okay, it doesn't sound like a lot of people have used the MDE before. Okay. There's also a little bit of change in the SMC, so that TLS listener port for the gateway service is no longer specified during a new installation. So when you do the enterprise setup, then you specify the TLS now in the SMC, so that's new. Also, 21.2 included, at least in Bookshelf, it says that EI Object Manager, GMS Receiver, probably some other components too. They no longer require restart when you deliver an RR change that for development environments, or you do a migration and thus change the RR in the test or production environment. So that is new in Bookshelf. I'm not sure if it's really technically new, because I recall that most components just reload the repository, but let's not go there too much. Maybe somebody has some light on that. And there's a new Tomcat laid down. So there's always a little surprise package in the update when a new Tomcat update comes with the installer. And Bookshelf is updated, has a completely new installation guide. So that's very important for the MDE. So there's kind of a pre-MDE era, I would say, and a post-MDE or an MDE era. And in the MDE era, where we just started, there is a new installation guide. So make sure you have the latest version and not use some old version of the installation guide. Okay, I have prepared a live unboxing. So that is a machine I've prepared, and I've downloaded some of the zip files. I think a lot of you have downloaded MDE right now for 21.2, so there are 9 zip files. And the first zip file is literally these 3 documents. So there's the release notes. There's a text document which tells us, okay, there are the content of several zip files you might not need. And that I find very interesting, actually, that you need only a minimum of files on disk to install it. If you want to do a simple update and you don't have any language packs, you actually need only 1 file, which is the second of 9. And if you have language packs, there is this what Oracle calls the Siebel non-ENU safe boot zip. That's the third one. So the third one is like all the language packs. And only if you want to do a new install or an upgrade, prepare for an upgrade, then you need, for example, 7 of 9, which is not the Star Trek 7 of 9, it's just the Siebel ancestors. The ancestor repositories are also now packaged in MDE, which I find very nice as someone who does regular upgrades, and you don't have to download them from, I can't remember where they are. I always have to look for them. All right. And then it says just, run setup bat. So, well, maybe let's do that. It's an unboxing. So I unboxed the 2 zip files. So I get this disk 1 folder, install folder, looks familiar. And what I have here on this system before we go, there's a Siebel. Let's just go there. Siebel 20.11 is installed, and it's a training machine. So where we cram everything on one single machine: an Oracle database, Oracle 32-bit client, AI, developer web client, Siebel server, Siebel gateway, tools. So it's all on a single machine. So that's a bit of a challenge. It's not your usual environment. So let's just run this setup and see how far we go. Okay, so that's, most of you have seen this by now. So MDE is a very big installer as it looks. There's 19 pages. And the first page is it's where you decide you want to do a new installation by entering a folder name. So it will switch into new mode, so to speak. And if you select any of the existing homes it founds, and you see I have 4 installations here on this machine. So let's start with the SES. Then it goes into update mode. And so you see there are just a few pages you really have to fill in. All right, so that is nothing to do here. So it just has found the Siebel Enterprise components. It's gonna update, and there's nothing to select really. So the next page is okay, let's go full screen. So that's the famous post-install database update wizard. And to be really honest, what I do most of the times is I click skip, even if it's the first time, because I really want to run it on my own manually. I want to prepare things. I want to make sure I have all the usernames, passwords correct. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to skip it so we run it separately. Okay, and that's it. So the installer starts running. Yeah, there it goes. Off we go. Okay, so anybody want to share some experience with that? I see I'm looking
at the anything I was going to say there was, just before you went into that final step there, and I never do it either, but you could save what you've done to that point in a response file so that you could automate each release, this sort of 4-step process that you have of upgrading all 4 components in the way that you want to upgrade them. Now, of course, if you want to look out for new features that might be in the installer, then that may hide them from you, but it's also a way to automate it.
Yeah, sure. Oh yeah, sure. Duncan, as Duncan points out very correctly, I could have saved the response file and canceled out and then ran it unattended. And by modifying the response file, that's what you mean, Duncan. Then
That's right, yeah.
yeah, create installation procedures for all my components on that machine, and yeah, of course,
Or indeed for other machines if you want
or
to upgrade multiple machines.
of course, other machines too. Yeah, so unattended install is definitely something. Yeah, in this, let's say in a demonstration mode, it's just a graphical installer. It's just more fun, of course. And it's already done. Wow, this thing is fast.
Yeah. So, one of the first places that I saw how much quicker it is. I mean, one of the primary reasons it's so fast is that we've effectively got out of the rollback game, as it were. So all we're actually doing here is taking a zip file and just laying down all of the files you need for this version.
Right.
Previously, you would install IP17 and then you would upgrade it. Now we're no longer doing that, so we don't have to save the old IP17 stuff and place in the new 21.2 stuff. It's just an unpack. And as a guide for containers, which I build, previously they would build in about 10 to 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. Now it's 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Sorry, 4 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a great enhancement for speed. So it lays down the new folder really quick. Actually, it's a new folder. It's still called SES, but the old one, it just renames. So that's it does that when it starts. It just renames the folder by this kind of a complete backup, a cold backup of sorts. The entire folder.
It's just a rename.
Yeah,
but you'd also notice if you look through that you'll see some copies from that pre-folder into the new folder.
That just happened. Yeah. So
a lot of that.
And that's especially interesting on the AI, where you might have a lot of custom JavaScript for OpenUI, and on the SES there's probably not much custom stuff, but the odd IFB files, etc. And it will copy those over. You also see what it does now. It does a few things actually. It says updating server XML starting web server, so it's happening so quick, but it has actually installed, because it's Windows, it has installed a new, let's refresh that. You see, that's the old Tomcats that were shut down. I'm refreshing. And it lays down a new Tomcat. That's the 9041. The old AI Tomcat still 37. It changes the name. And well, personally, I like my services manual. It sets them to automatic, so I used to, set it back to manual. And it's still like deleting the old one, creating a new one. Am I right, Duncan?
Evidence seems to be complete there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still, if I have some configuration on that with terms of, let's say, memory settings for Java, etc. I need to go in again. So the usual bit we do every time when we update. So it hasn't really changed. So let's just make sure this Tomcat has enough power again. Oh, where's my command prompt? There it is. And yeah, you notice the machine's getting a bit slow. And actually what happens, and that caught me unsurprised, caught me by surprise, is that the Siebel server, where is it? Yeah, you see, the Siebel server I had already on my machine is set to manual. It was stopped. But the installer actually, it started the gateway. Well, it started that new Tomcat, the gateway, and it started the Siebel server. So it's kind of kicking on the enterprise again, which maybe a bit too early because there's not even post-install run. So yeah, but that's happening. So we just observe what's happening. And so
I'm guessing from what you had that you actually have SES and Gateway installed together and AI separate. So it probably did some kind of spaghetti logic to figure out that it could attempt this.
So would you mean that, let's say you have an enterprise with 10 servers, it wouldn't do that? It's clever. It's like very smart and figuring out this is the entire servers in the entire enterprise. I can kick them off.
No, I don't think it's that clever.
Okay. So yeah, well, that is nice. So here the Java settings, yeah, there are those ridiculous settings from 1995, or let's just multiply by 10 because we can. So that's not decent memory pool. So my Tomcat's configured again. Also, what I need to do, because that's kind of a custom system we use for training, that Tomcat service name on Windows, it changes now internal. Guidance is internal, or whatever they say. This is now the Tomcat name for the SES Tomcat internal. So it's the one that is internally used, and the AI Tomcat will be renamed to external Tomcat. But since it's renamed and I got a few custom scripts, like a startup script, I need to make sure that the script is updated. Right, there we go. There's a stop script. There might be a more clever way, but that's just me. Okay, unboxing VR, and while we were talking, it has updated the server XML too. So there might be some checking is in order for everything. Any customization on the server XML survived, but to my knowledge, it survives well. And so it has, well, finished already while we were talking. So that's the SES folder. So that, as Duncan pointed out correctly, that's my gateway plus Siebel server in that SES folder, and it updated both. And now so that's done. The binaries are updated. So here, again, there's now in pre-21.2 folder. That's just a renamed old folder, and there's the new folder structure. Well, in all its glory. That's I think a site where we have to get ours used to in the next few years. That's the new folder structure with the how would you call it? It's like all the enterprise stuff is here, right? So there is the Tomcat that can host the AI. There is a Tomcat that can host the SES Tomcat. There is, for example, the DB server folder, database server utilities. You might notice there's no mstrep file. The mstrep file is delivered as a separate zip. If you need it for example, installing a repository or installing a new database or running an upgrade where it also needs the mstrep, then you can just extract it and run the update, or maybe run the update again. So I think that file 4 of 9 is the mstrep, and 7 of 9 was the upgrade ancestor repos. They all go here in the DB server. Then there's the gateway server with Zookeeper. There's Siebel server. So, and no matter what you install, AI, gateway, or Siebel server has always the same folder structure. So if you have any scripts referencing, let's say, the application container folder, you would have to update those custom scripts. All right, so that's done. Now the post install I wanted to do separate. So I'll be completely honest with you. It's not a first time unboxing. I've done some of these updates on several machines, and there was the post install update ran fine until the end, and then it just didn't complete with success. It completed with an error, and in the log files, I'm not sure. Maybe it's just my environment. In the log files, there was a pick list error on some workflow update. So it does some updates on the workflow, MDE-era, there was a pick list error. So I did some research on that, and it's actually all about this WF group code. That's the workflow group pick list. So let me go there. So this is that pick list here. That's the workflow group pick list. And for whatever reason, at least on my database, on my systems, some of the values in the group column are not in the list of values. So what I did, the second time, I made sure that all these values are there. So this might differ very largely on your system. So I'm getting out on thin ice here. But this was just something I had to do. So that usage pattern, for example, that I saw in the log file. So now I have done this already. So I've prepared my list of values. So that error should not happen. And now let's run the post install database. So I like to run it manually. So let's go to Siebel, the new SES, Siebel server bin, and let's check if the copy of custom files worked, because there should be this system has been updated quite often, and there should be the setup ini is already populated, because that's the file it has copied over from the backup folder. So yeah, it looks like everything's in place here. And that post install I can run with this setup. And yeah, that's always the fun with the P, set and P. Admin password. Well, glad enough I have the same password for both Siebel and Sadmin users. All right, so let's well, kick this off. I think we're good to go. Well, my server's running. So I don't like the idea that my server's running some components, getting into lock. So let me just stop that Siebel server. Okay, what else to prepare for? Well, while it's stopping, yeah, I put together a few tips, just things that I noted. So first of all, yeah, make sure you read the new installation guide 21.2. Make sure you read the release notes. There are some known issues for 21.2, so make sure you search for 21.2 in the release notes, find them, and stop all the services. If you're on 2011 or higher, or you use the early adopter for the script debugger, you have the debug server running. Yeah, you have to stop that too. It's not replaced or all. It just has a file lock on some files, and so you can't rename the folder. Then there's this LOV, which you might want to check. If you update the developer web client, so I discussed this with Holger. I was surprised the developer web client, this makes no sense to use the local database. It's the 21.2 requires the database to be unzipped, the 8 of 9 file. And it lays down an SE2 service, which you can deactivate later. So that's like going back to Siebel Tool 17.0 installer. It lays down that local database. Well, that's happening. And there is a database client also in one of the zip files. And I think that I can't really answer questions to that database client. I see Duncan is busy in the chat. Thanks, Duncan. That may be a question of me in that from us, that database client is officially required for SE2, but it also says in documentation for LDAP. So it's, the Oracle client can also connect to LDAP. So if you but on our machines, there is already an Oracle 32-bit client, so I guess it's a little bit redundant. So I'm not sure about this one. I tend to not install it unless it's really necessary, which is only for the developer web client or the Siebel web client. And post-install database update, we run manually. And then after update, make sure you are, you look into your Tomcat services. If on Windows, you have new services as usual, reconfigure them, modify any scripts. The Siebel servers are kicked off. So like I did, I stopped them before I run post-install. And if you include that database client, it will be extracted, and on Windows, the path environment variable will have references to it. Actually, in the first section of the path environment variable, so you have to delete them again. That's actually what it says in the release notes, so make sure you read them. Then verify your custom content. So I didn't have much trouble with custom content so far, but there might be the odd file that doesn't make it over. So, make sure you keep a copy or some archive of these pre-folders, the cold backup for a while, just in case you're chasing down a file or so. So Siebel server stopped now. Yeah, let's stop the gateway too. Just be on the safe side. Let's stop that Tomcat. Okay, so my Siebel is completely down, and now I'm kicking off the post install. And fingers crossed. Let's check task manager there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's running first step. The workspace ranking finds out it has been run. Now the hard part is number 2 and 3, where the lots of utilities. I find it quite interesting to watch in the task managers. You see that, for example, the Siebel CLI, the Siebel development client, actually it's not Siebdev, it's Siebdev CLI. So what I call it is like it's the command line version of Siebel tools. It really hits hard on the machine, as you can see here. So it's importing ZIF files, it's publishing stuff. And yeah, so that's a great addition. It's not new. It is actually the seamless repository update. I think that's the official name. And if you imagine a Linux system where you don't even have Siebel tools, that's your kind of Siebel tools command line version that runs all the updates on Linux. So that's really cool. You also see the main wrapper is, so actually the post-install database setup is the wrapper for the repository upgrade. Duncan, correct me if I'm wrong. And the repository upgrade is the wrapper calling everything else.
It makes sense, but I was until that showed up, I actually had a funny feeling that repository upgrade wasn't run, because I've automated these processes for people doing upgrades from version A to version A+1 on containers, but I've never sort of, you don't necessarily see all these processes running, and I was actually curious whether you're going to talk about that actually there.
The Siebdev CLI.
The repository upgrade.exe.
If you look into that log file, it's actually not doing much, right? So it's just kicking off other processes like Siebdev CLI or the ODBC SQL. So it's like orchestrating stuff. Yeah, I know there's this old version of repository upgrade XE2 when you want to include some stuff that was in like 18.8 or before. Can't recall correctly, but this one is run completely automatic. So we have to wait this out, and of course we're not going to watch it all the time. So let's see what else do we have. 21.2. I see you guys are really busy in the chat, and Duncan, glad to have you. So you're actually answering questions in the chat, yeah. And I'm gonna go through the chat when this is over, and any questions that might not be answered by Duncan, I will forward to Holger. So he agreed to answer questions too. So maybe let's hear it from you guys. Did you have any playtime already with the MDE with 21.2? What's your first impressions? Remember, you're unrecorded. Okay, Nick in the chat says loved it. Okay, that's cool. You can speak out a microphone, yeah, if you want, or just use the chat. So yeah, what's your first impression, or even what you see here? Maybe it's the first time you see it. So what's your first impression?
It was kind of cool. The only thing I had an issue with is that the old patching, I would know which one I had done and not done. So like if I'm multitasking, I had to think about which one wasn't there because they're all there all the time. But other than that, pretty good. Post install sucked, but that's okay.
Okay. Well, yeah, okay, it does that
And then
from
on
time to time.
Linux, it was easy to go back to 2012. All I did is rename the libraries.
Yeah, sure. So
That was easy, but it did keep the old library. So interesting.
so you mean the Linux libraries?
Yeah, I kept, well, I had three folders, AI Gateway and SES, and when I did the upgrade, it kept those, but put everything in the AI folder. So
Okay, that's
it's kind
interesting.
of confusing that way. I mean, I would have thought they'd have seen the three folders or told us to.
You mean
They have to pull all that stuff in, so they should have.
oh,
If they're only going to use one folder, just get rid of the other two somehow.
okay, I know what you mean. Yeah, that's like you would expect, like I have on my machine. I have separate AI, separate SES, and you would expect to kind of consolidate into one. But that I already covered with all in a discussion with Duncan and Holger, and it's not happening for installations that are updated. It's just happening. You can opt for it in a new installation. So it's not consolidating your folders. It's just keeping, SES separate from AI and gateway separate, maybe if you have them. Makes sense to me, but all the folders look the same now and they have the same content. But let's say if the AI folder is just hosting the external Tomcat and the SES folder is hosting the internal one, even if they have both folders. That might be a bit confusing, right? Okay, but yeah, thanks, Nick, for that. And
Well, I ended up doing three folders, one for AI Gateway and SES, so I have different ports to start and stop things. Otherwise, if I do Gateway SES, I have to start them both up at the same time, and that's not always a good thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it keeps whatever decision you made back in Siebel 18, 19, 20 to keep your folders separate. It keeps that decision, so it does not like interfere with your decision and consolidate everything into one folder. That wouldn't be nice. I think that would be not a good idea because you want to keep separate ports and even separate Tomcats because you want the gateway Tomcat separate from the SES Tomcat because of maybe some load performance issues or whatever. Especially production. Now the gateway Tomcat can be hit really hard, and the SES Tomcat takes the outbound load, and so you want to keep them separate. When you have two processes rather than one. So that stays the way it is. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we do AI and Gateway on one server and SES on the other servers.
Okay. Right. So yeah, it's still chugging away on. You see, it's taking its time to run all these scripts and updates. So let's see some. Yeah, so see some tips. Yeah, so those folders, going back to those folders. So this is the folder structure that is now for all enterprise components. Mind you that.
Can you make it a little bigger?
Yeah, sure. Yes. Here we go. Mind you that tools and client on Windows only, of course, there's the installer is only for Windows. Tools and clients still have a different folder structure. They are Windows clients. They don't have this structure. So this is just the enterprise server structure. Here in this installation, I included that Oracle database client. So you see it's laid down in a separate folder. And I have yet to figure out what's really it's the purpose. I guess it's of course necessary if you install a mobile web client. That's what it says in Bookshelf. Mobile web client needs, of course, an SE2 database. It needs a client, so it comes with its. So maybe for the first time, a Siebel installer includes a database client because we already had to install it separately. And for it, there's also this LDAP thing. If you don't have an LDAP connector, you might want to deploy it. But it's, in my perspective, it's not necessary to deploy it. I tried it, of course, and I ended up with that folder, and the path was changed. I had to change the path back, remove the path entry because it interfered with my 32-bit client because it's all on the same machine. Okay. Yeah, and this container folders, application container folders, again, I haven't updated the AI yet, but the AI folder is now application container external, and then you would expect that there's web apps and Siebel. So there's web apps, but the classic web app Siebel folder, which is like the public folder we have, is now there's a new folder, Siebel WebRoot. So that's important news. There's another folder change, a folder structure change inside the AI. There's now a Siebel WebRoot folder directly under application container _ external. And this is where your files go. So I'm not sure if we can see it in the live system already, because let's just try. So external, yeah, we can see it. It's laid down already. So, and here you have your language specific stuff. You have files, fonts, the usual bits, no, the scripts. So this is now what the Siebel public folder on an AI looks like. And if you have any, again, if you have any custom scripts referring to the old structure, you might want to update those scripts. They will not run correctly because they refer to the old structure.
But personally, Alex, I don't like the idea of customers having to fiddle like this. I mean, no doubt we'll take care of it with the MDE installer. But when it comes to the custom content, if you go up a directory here to application container external and into the conf folder, there you have the server.xml. And
right.
We saw earlier
where, not yet, not in this one because it's not an AI.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Go over to AI.
I know what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's interesting that you even had a Siebel WebRoot here in SES instead of AI, because it would only make sense.
Yeah, well, it lays down the standard folder structure. It lays it down, but there's no AI configured in here, so there's no server XML. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you, Duncan.
All I was really going to say was, you know, we saw server.xml being updated, but customers, you know, in theory, might know more about Tomcat than we do and may have made other changes to server.xml. So you may need to go and look at your old server.xml and your new server.xml. If you go down to the bottom here, go a bit much further down, you'll see, this looks a little bit different actually. Yeah. Somewhere in here, you should see the reference to...
it's right there at localhost, but it's not been updated.
Exactly, yeah. Oh, it's because he hasn't done the update.
Yeah, it's not updated yet. Yeah.
Okay. You'll see the definition to WebRoot here. But for custom content, I think it makes a lot of sense here to add additional
Yes,
references.
that's what Oracle puts in the release notes ever since. That you should create a custom entry here and point to your folder where your stuff is.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, of course that's a good thing, and I see a lot of customers adopting that strategy. So you don't, as Duncan says, yeah, you don't have to worry about any updates. You just have your own folder, maybe Siebel custom stuff or whatever it's called, and maybe some folders, some subdirectories in there, and so that's a good strategy, of course. Yeah, I totally agree.
For containers, I've actually moved it to SFS.
Oh, right, just right smack in the file system. Yeah.
Yeah, put it in SFS because SFS is available to every every tier, really. Typically, everyone needs to SFS. I've got it in SFS Web Apps Siebel.
On that machine, yeah, on a machine where permissions and shares are okay. Yeah. All right.
Alex, I've been using that since you put it in your blue book.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Yeah, I put an article on the Siebel Hub a while ago about this technique. Yeah. So, but this environment is pretty much vanilla, as vanilla as it gets. So it's like, of course, nothing near any of your customized environments, mind you. So what's our update doing? Still chugging away. Okay, still, yeah, really.
I think you'd be lucky if that finishes.
Sorry?
I think you'd be lucky if that finishes within the hour.
Yeah, let's just see where we go. It's anywhere we get. So
yeah. So the only other thing I was going to say about that web route, so going back to the application container folder there, why did we do this, right? Well, previously all of the content in Siebel web route was in a siebel.war file, which was sometimes got a little bit overexcited and redeployed itself over the top of people's changes.
Yeah, right.
It just didn't really make much sense to have to unpack that thing and waste time unpacking it. So yet again, what happened when we did that original install is it just laid everything down without having to wait for Tomcat to start and then lay more stuff down. Mm-hmm. So it just basically gets it all done in one go, and there's much less chance of Tomcat getting in the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So another change, but awareness needs to be. There needs to be some awareness of actually those folder structure changes and folder name changes and service name changes. So you're well prepared. I got one screenshot I took from a new install about that TLS listener port. The most, let's say, the most confused port ever, I would say, in the history of Siebel. As TLS, to be fair, it's not really a good name for it. What about the Siebel gateway port, where the gateway service listens on, and it's not the Zookeeper port or something like that? So and that TLS port was specified during a new installation. So when you installed 17.0, the base, let's say when I installed 21.1, still have 17.0, and that base installer asks you for that TLS port. And if you don't document it by the time you go to SMC and configure your bootstrap and on enterprise, you have forgotten about that port. So I think it's a very good idea to put it actually in the bootstrap. So it's the first thing that you are asked for in as you can see, step 1. So besides the machine where the future primary gateway will be, you also have the port of that gateway service. Yeah. So that's a small change, but it's of course I would say it's a good one, and welcome. All right. So apart from that, it finished successfully. Yay. Rejoice. And we got us a report. Well, let's look at that report. And so that's in Sieb server log. Here we go. And yeah, so it's like 15 minutes, not too bad. And yeah, so you sure have checked out those reports before when you run the post-install database update. I notice it gets more and more information into it as time goes along. And 20.3 was the first one. It was this one is really complete. So you see a repository type. This was a DR environment. It's a bit different on an RR. And initializing, it has all the links to those log files, and you can figure out what it does if you really have a lot of time on your hands. This one is a tapped tab, or what do you call it? So has, for example, some information about the schema changes. And this is interesting to read because there's like schema changes for 21.1. So you see I'm noticing this definitely was a 20.11, but it kind of, I don't know if it's intentional, but it runs everything from 20.3 again. So it doesn't really matter because it's kind of can be run repeatedly. You know, schema changes, they are cumulative, but it runs all those scripts. So it could have started at 20.12, right? So because it could figure out it's 20.11, and I don't have to run this, but it kind of makes sure that everything's in there. Is that what you can? Is that a correct statement, Duncan?
Sorry, I missed that. What was that?
Sorry, I see you're busy typing in the chat. Sorry for putting you under pressure here. No, that fact that it runs the 20.3, 20.7 schema updates.
Oh, right, yeah.
Despite its 20.11, is kind of it adds some redundancy to the process and makes sure that everything has happened that needs to happen.
Exactly. What it's doing is it's determining where you're coming from and where you're going to. And there was actually a bit of an amusing issue at some point when we went from 20.9 to 20.10. I hope nobody came across this, but it turned out that 20.10 was less than 20.9.
Yeah, because 1 is less than 9. Yeah,
so we ended up with
I've been there. I might be the only person on the planet updating every release with our training machine. So you know, I have a 20.9 update to 20.10, then update the next month. So I'm probably the only person to have experienced that. Yeah.
So it thought you didn't need any upgrade, but yeah, what it should do is actually figure out what is needed from where you were to where you need to go, and it applies them all.
But this is a 20.11 machine, and so what I was saying, it applies 20.3 all the way up.
In theory, it shouldn't. I think it should only apply what it figures it.
Okay. All right. Okay, but I was thinking it's. Sorry. Yeah, go on.
I was going to say, if you go into the log folder where you picked up the HTML for this, not here. Go into the actual folder.
Yeah. Right.
So go into that top folder, and in there, look at console seed manifest upgrade. I think it might be that one, or it might, it's that one. Go in there. Yeah. So what it says is you're currently coming into 21.2. These are the things that are available, and these are the things that are required. So if it's got that wrong, then it's got that wrong for a reason, and that really should not happen.
Oh, okay. So it's got that. Let's say if you're saying it's got that wrong, and this looks a bit odd to me because there should be probably look like this.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's got confused. that should have said 21 dot whatever.
So some previous update probably didn't include.
I think we know that Alex is a hacker, and
no, I didn't do anything with
it.
Okay, but
update s, ver Siebel.s
no,
ver
yeah.
s ver.
You want me to see the SAP ver table, huh?
Well, no, but I'm just saying that something went wrong there, and I'm not sure
but
why.
Despite, so let's say it's despite the fact that you're saying it went wrong, but it's still okay. So it's like it can run multiple times. If you apply a table multiple times, nothing really bad happens.
True, exactly right.
Of course, now that's already updated to 20 because it ran. Yeah.
Yeah, you can also see, you'll see it in some other file there, what it actually got from SAP ver, and it must have been that bizarre thing that you saw.
Yeah, okay, but let's not go there. Let's not try to troubleshoot it, because it ran successfully, and I'm quite sure it did everything it had to do, despite it did a little bit more than it had to do. But let's just keep it at that. So so these reports, the report tells me that it did that, and you have the log files to prove it somehow. And so there's the manifested imports. So there's also version numbers here, 20.9, 20.1.1. So also telling me there's no new manifest stuff for 21.2, right? Because I think 21.2 is really focusing on the MDE, and there's nothing with regards to any repository or manifest content, not even schema-wise. Seed data also you see at importing. That doesn't matter too. You can run the seed data import as much as you fancy. There's some seed data for 21.2, so there's a little bit. And if you want to know what that is, probably follow down these. Well, yeah, 2 rows and list of values. You could locate the file and see what has been added to list of values. So yeah, that's the report. I think it's worthwhile. At least I enjoy reading that report a lot. So okay, so yeah, and then there's this workflow upgrade, and maybe I have a question, because previously there was workflow upgrade, which is like, okay, the 20.7 thing. But recently I noticed in the post-install database setup, it does something called a workflow migration on DR systems. And I'm not sure what it migrates where, but it's like a little bit of a conundrum. All right, so yeah, we are unboxing 21.2. We have run the MDE on Siebel server and gateway. So we got a new folder with the new structure. We got a new Tomcat. We ran the post-install database setup manually successfully. So now I could, in theory, follow up with the AI. So let's kick off the AI update and then look at something else while it's running. So that is all right. So I'm starting the MDE once more. And then, yeah, so choose the AI folder. Notice you can still select the old folder, and that's actually the MDE too. It has a new way of serving the environment for just in case you want to add stuff. For example, you want to add language packs. Then now if I select the SES now, I updated it. It's now 21.2. So you see there's now difference. I can actually, the next step is language selection. So if I would have extracted the 3 of 9 file, you have to do that first. Extract the 3 of 9 file. You can add any language pack into that installation. So that's interesting. So that's why it's still there. In the old installer, it was no longer available once you update it. So now the AI, you see there's no language selection because it goes into kind of update mode. So this thing is really smart. And so now it's about the AI. So yeah, just run it. Again, it will rename that folder. Should have done by now, so let's check. Yeah, so that's the coldest backup it can take. Now I just renamed that folder. So make sure you don't have anything running, no processes running, no files being locked. I've seen an error message once, so there was a file open in Notepad++ and it didn't run because it couldn't rename that folder because Windows said no. So now it lays down the new folder, and that new folder will have the exact same structure as the SES. Okay. One more thing I noticed, that is like the DB server folder. It has a binaries, right? And those binaries are like all the DLLs, etc. But those DLLs are the same like on the Siebel server folder, right? So there's a binary folder too, and you have the same DLLs. So what's actually happening, if you look closely, is that the bin folder and also the locale folder, or Linux, it's the lib folder, and those are links or shortcuts on Windows. So that's really a shortcut, and yeah, you see, target location is Sieb server bin. So that's interesting. Even on Windows, it lays down a shortcut to not having to place those files redundantly. All right. So I see the chat is really busy. And Duncan, I'm so glad that you're here. So again, I will go through the chat and make sure that any unanswered questions will go to Oracle, and we'll update. When we put out the recording on this Siebel Hub YouTube channel next week, there will be a chat section. Okay. Yeah, so that was already 1 hour to go. I don't have an end date really for Siebel Friday, but I understand for most of you it's like, okay, 1 hour for Siebel per month. And I won't keep you, but I also want to show you some other things that we've been doing in the past month since the last Siebel Friday. One thing in particular is the devpops package that we put together. Not sure if Jason or Slava are here today. Can't see them in the list. Yeah, so this is a kind of a community effort, and if you don't know yet what devpops is, let me show you. So it's a GitHub package. It's educational, so it's to educate yourselves. It's not like you should just copy paste this stuff and use it. And it deals with all these developer issues that you might have, and we're adding stuff as we go. So it's actually one big dirty post load file, which is not good style, but it's the easiest way to deploy it. So you can kick it off really quick in a sandbox, and there's some CIF files. Yeah, it goes with along with a few business services to read repository data, and I've prepared a quick demo of the latest devpops here. So devpops, once you have it, it does two things in your application. It adds the ability to right-click the dashboard icon and select any workspace. It's sorted by last update. So main 15 was the latest I delivered. Then I have my still writable development workspaces, and you can either select a version or just click to get the highest version, and it will load it in inspect mode.
Good question, Alex. If
Yeah.
you have that one already selected, will it also reload it?
No, you have to reselect it. So like just go in there once more And
yeah,
so
that's what I meant. If you're already opening that one and you go in there and click it, will it reload it?
it will reload it, yeah.
So
So if you have made
effectively,
any changes in between in web tools, and you can reload it, yeah.
so it's automating the process of going into the workflow dashboard and
Yeah, it literally
it.
saves you a few clicks, and that was
Yeah, I've asked for them to implement this, but so whatever you're doing there sounds like a good input for them.
right. It's a bit, well, it's I'm honest, it's dirty, because there's an error message there. It would actually crash. We found a workaround that actually, if you see it, it navigates to one view quickly and navigates back. If you don't do that, navigate away and back again, it crashes. But I'm quite sure engineering has access to the source code. They can make it much better. I'm not saying that Oracle should do that. It's just like we pushing the boundaries.
No, we should do that. No, we absolutely should do that. I mean, I actually think we should go further, and we should integrate the application with the development environment, so that the application is a sub window, if you like. If you've got a big screen, it could even be full size with the development system, and press a button and basically push your config into.
Why not go into edit mode and drag the applet stuff and write it back like in the composer days? But let's not go there. And you also get this debug menu. So I stole the bug from Oracle, but this is a custom menu. And it has. If you've been in the first Siebel Friday, you're using devpops, you might want to check for updates on GitHub. Get the latest, because it is really enhanced now. Since last Siebel Friday, for example, I added the X-ray. Well, the X-ray was there, but it's a bit enhanced now. So, for example, the BC fields, gives you real color. Well, it also gives you the business component and the link names, so you can really see what's a child and what's a primary business component there. You also see, of course, the business component field names instead of the labels, a bit more colors here. Let's reset that. And the show controls has been added to actually show you the control level information. So that resolves, I'm quite proud of that, resolves the shuttle applet. So you see I have both applet names next to control, and as you go through, it actually collects this information in a tooltip in the title so you can retrieve that information, also the prior information. So it kind of collects that thing. So, and then there's the show columns for those who haven't seen it before, where you see which table and column this stuff resides. And this one is probably a VBC, so that doesn't show anything. Works for form and list applets. That's the X-ray. X-ray is really ancient. I've started doing that when OpenUI came out, but yeah, so this is the latest X-ray version you can get your hands on. It's included in devpops. Then we have tracing, which is Jason's part. So he added the ability to actually enable tracing on the fly, SQL tracing. So you have some settings there. You can choose SQL allocation tracing, add some presentation model events maybe to the trace file. And then you can view the trace file. So I've already recorded a trace file, but it's inline. And we've added some stats. So you can see how many selects there are in the file. There's even a bit of a chart showing off here. Yeah. So that is all, of course, educational. So if you feel like there's something missing or so, just try implement it yourself. Maybe fork on GitHub and let me know, and we'll update the GitHub project. Or just keep in touch. Reach out to me. You know how to reach me. I will put my email address at the end of this. So just in case you want to collaborate on devpops, that would be really great. Yeah. And we have There was a pet peeve of mine was run Siebel Server Manager from the browser. So, for example, to enter a command like list comps, and then it runs it and comes back. Oh, that's bad. That's the demo gods. It usually works, but not this time. Okay, it should work. And we have SARM, but the server manager thing we can enable. We can do things like enabling SARM, and so run the session for, let's say, for record SARM for 10 minutes just for this session, and then, for example, show the SARM stat. Show SARM in a nice way. Well, this is just very primitive, doing the same as the console output, just in a chart, but you get the picture what it does. Okay, and the final thing we added here, let's go to a really big applet. Now there's a big form applet, and it's one of those applets where you're really never happy with the layout, you know. You can move things around so much in web tools, and eventually you break it. And personally, I've been working on this for years, since the first customer said we need a responsive version of the form applet. Duncan, I know you too worked on web template based fluid applets. Yeah, and my approach is a bit different. So I'm gonna re-render that applet, taking the, there are some form sections here like logistics and service, taking that into account. And there's a demo built in. It's called break free, and so it breaks free the applet, and you see each individual form section becomes an accordion icon. And this is now really also responsive. So let me just, you see when I resize the browser, you see that it resizes to eventually 1 column, 2 column, 3 columns as you go. So this is using Flex layout, CSS Flex. So the latest and greatest what browsers can do. So it should work in any modern browser, and you can break out any form applet, and it's still the same functionalities there. These are the real controls, not repainting the controls. So it's just the controls moved outside of that table structure into a breaking free. So that's a demo I added for several customers to inspect it, and feel free to inspect the code. And yeah.
Did you save the broken free parameter, if you like, inside the view preference so that persists?
Well, it's actually not yet persistent. So in devpops there would be like a flip switch like that to turn it on always. So that with the BC fields, for example, if you turn on that flip switch and you go to a view, you see that it stays there for each view, right? So I could do the same for the break free, so to make it stick. And I know what you're getting to, probably.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, yeah, you can. Well, it's like a function you invoke on the applet. So pass the applet to that function, it will convert it. So you can do it anytime. Yeah. All right. So there's a lot of new stuff in devpops utility and the devpops package. So yeah, check it out, and please feel free to contribute, and let's try and break the screen with that menu, make it even bigger. All right. So where are we? Well, we are. I know I'm doing overtime, so we have no clear end time. Let's just check out the installer. Yeah, the AI update has already finished, so that's actually quite fast because it just copies over files. It takes care of the custom files, of course, and puts them in that Siebel web root. So whatever was in the custom folder is now in Siebel web root. And it has laid down a new Tomcat. So let's just finish this update. And yeah, open the floor. The chat is open. Please keep putting your questions in the chat and we'll pick them up. Or yeah, use your microphone and comment on what you're seeing. How do you feel about this Siebel Friday so far?
I think it's a gas.
Yeah.
The only thing I wish you all would do is do some Linux stuff. Everything is always done in Windows.
Yeah.
And translating to Linux is always a pain in the butt.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why. No. Okay. I'm honest. I'll be honest. I'm not. Linux is like 5% of my daily work with Siebel, so that is why I prefer Windows, and it's also more visual for presentation. But yeah, why not pick this up and maybe do a bit of a Linuxy Siebel Friday?
And I wouldn't mind sharing what I've done in our vanilla environment.
Okay, yeah.
See how it's set up and the stuff I've done, and you can either correct me, help me, teach me.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what Siebel Friday is all about. It's a community thing. And so Nick, if okay for you, I'm gonna reach out to you and we can exchange notes, and maybe next Siebel Friday we do it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, great, thanks. Great initiative. Okay, so yeah, again, this is just my system. I have to update it correctly with the new service name. Whoops, that's not the service name. That's the service name. Okay. Notice AI is now considered to be the external Tomcat. Yeah. There was
basically internal to Siebel or external to Siebel. External, i.e. to use.
Yeah. Reachable from the outside, so that is.
Originally, it was inbound and outbound, and customers during controlled availability said that they thought internal and external was better, so we changed it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it seems like the early adopter program was a real success on this one.
What if you have like different ports for SES and gateway? Does that still does it understand that on the internal?
Yep. They're just different settings. If you look in the RSP, by the RSP, I mean the response file.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So I mean, of course, the truth there is that you have, and this is why they're typically. Let me just think here. What you typically have is two instances of Tomcat, one for gateway, one for SES. I know you said earlier that you install them all separately, so that's fine. With Alex's install here, I'm not so sure. I'm guessing it's just all doing it under one instance of Tomcat, which is performing all of the internal discussion for both SES and CGW.
Yes. So gateway and SES Tomcat are basically the internal one here. So the co-located Tomcat, yeah. And the AI is separate. Yeah. All right.
Hi, Alex. This is Dheeraj, and I really appreciate all the work you're doing for Siebel. I follow you on Twitter and Siebel Hub, and it's really great to see you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. And in regards to the MDE, we are currently on 15.10, and we have plans to start upgrading in dev starting next week to 21.2. And this video really helps us. The only question I have is that in regards to the rollback process, do you think it's better to go with snapshots taken prior to our upgrade, or
So
is the uninstall process easier with MDE?
Well, you say you're playing upgrade from Siebel 15.
Right, to 21.2.
Yeah, so that is totally different from what we've seen today. Yeah, because that was an update on 20.11. So if you're on Siebel 15, you have to do a new installation of using MDE, of course. Using MDE, you would install the Siebel server, this enterprise components, as it's now called, with the upgrade ancestor and new repository options.
Right. So we have to do the IRM
and then
as well.
And then use that installation to upgrade the database using the usual. That's the usual software. It did not change. That's a database config wizard. Asking parameters. Then the database upgrade wizard. You have to use UPG. UPG rep def, then UPG fusdef, and IRM Siebel tools is in between the incremental repository. So that's a whole upgrade project. That's a big thing. It's not something that runs in a few minutes. So I hope that's not the impression you get here. Yeah.
We just finished a 15.15 to a 20.6.
Yes.
Hey, how was the experience, Nick?
It was painful. The biggest part is the IRM. And are you running Linux or Windows?
We are on Windows.
Okay, then it'll be a lot easier. We run a Linux-Windows combination, so it was a little more complicated. But with the Windows, it shouldn't be too bad. Depending on your customizations, which flavor of Siebel are you using?
Which flavor in the sense?
I use an automotive, pharma,
industry.
We use for the field service.
Do you use the field service?
Yes.
How much customization do you have?
We have a lot of customizations. Yeah.
Okay,
it's
then
been for more than 7 years.
Is going to kill you. There's a lot of changes, especially going to 15.10 to 20. Going to 21.1.
21.2. We want to use the MDE. So.
And then how long do you plan your project?
We are planning to complete it by August, starting with dev next week.
Good luck.
Yeah, good. Good luck. Yes.
That's a year.
Yeah. Don't discourage, Nick. Don't discourage them.
Actually, we started in June for the IRM part, and we finished just 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Oh,
so that was 8 months. So give yourself some buffer time.
Yeah, always give yourself some buffer and upgrade. And if you've never done a Siebel upgrade before, make sure you get people on the project who have done an upgrade to something higher than Siebel 17.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can do it on your own, but the learning curve is so steep, you will fall down a lot. You'll fall on your face a lot of times.
Right.
And
there's a lot of architectural changes.
So you have a systems integrator that can help you doing that upgrade, or Oracle.
We have a consultant who has a prior knowledge, who did the upgrade above 17.
Okay. Yeah.
So
above 17.
Do you have integration?
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I just want to point out, doing some shameless upselling here, is that on the Siebel Hub we have recently, or at the beginning of the year, we have published our training catalog, and Richard and I, we are the two guys running the Siebel Hub, and Richard has its own one-man consulting, and I have my one-man consulting, Blacksheep, and we put our heads together, and we said there's no real training for people who want to learn the latest on Siebel 21 or Siebel 20. Let's put together a real good curriculum. So we have those, currently have seven workshops. So the workshop is like the what's new, and there's a modular version of it. So if your team is really interested getting information really quickly, then you can buy from the Siebel Hub shop. You can buy access to the videos and presentations and slide decks. So, and it's continuously updated. So we have just, when MDE was out, we literally I worked 2 evenings to get the MDE training out there. So it's live. And the total, you have the total, you have 1,100 pages. I'm not kidding. That's a total of PDF pages that you can download here, and 16 hours of video to watch. So this is the most complete Siebel 21 curriculum that you can get. And of course, we also offer live training. So if you're interested in that, just browse the site. I will put that page into the chat. So for those who are still here.
Yeah, Alex, we took that live training. It was pretty good.
Yeah, of course I remember. So now we have also live training for the upgrade, for OpenUI, for developer training, administrator training. So actually, it always makes me a little bit. It gives me goosebumps to say that we actually booked for teaching new hires in Siebel projects to become Siebel developers. So that is something that for the past few years I have not done a training for new hires, for new developers who never seen Siebel before. That was how my career started in Siebel, and now 20 years in, with everybody thinking Siebel is going down and Siebel, nobody's buying Siebel. Customers actually buying Siebel and they're hiring people, and we are training them. And so I think that's a great news. So if there's ever, let's say, a thing to say at the end of this Siebel Friday, Siebel is alive and kicking.
Hey, Alex, could you put on the website a price list of the learn your own stuff so I could submit it to my management for us to get into our budget for training?
Well, a price list. Yeah, I can do that, but the easiest way is you go into that shop categories. Like the whole workshop has 122 products. It's a bit much, but you can browse them. So there's the price.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it was just a spreadsheet I could give to them.
Okay, I can do that. Yeah, I will send you one.
I mean, that's because I can pick and choose then and let them put in their budget for us.
Right. Yeah. So it's literally you see it's individual chapters are really I don't want to use the word cheap, but let's say cost efficient, and
they're reasonable.
Reasonably priced. You can literally swipe your credit card or corporate credit card and have access to it immediately. So that's really something. And it helps running the Siebel Hub. So these most of this money goes to the Siebel Hub to run the website, because it's surprisingly expensive to run a big website like that. Okay, so yeah, I see people are signing off, so I think we call it a day. So we've done. This was a good one. Thank you all for listening in and for joining and for filling up the chat. Again, promise to keep track of all the chats. Yeah, Nick, I've seen that with the Blue Book. All right.
Thanks, Alex. I really appreciate all you do for the Siebel world.
Okay, thanks. Likewise.
You keep us honest.